I'm Jared Littner, Tackle Warehouse Pro, and in this week's vlog we're going to talk about what happened at Lake Wheeler and Smith Mountain Lake. Both of them were great events. You know, the first one, Lake Wheeler, was won by Tommy Biffle, who's a really good friend of mine, and I mean, I was at his house not too long ago, and there was no lying about what was going on, and he showed me the rods and the baits that he wanted on, and to start off with, everybody knows he's a flipper, and basically he did it with a rattleback, with a Jean LaRue salt craw, black and blue. I mean, he's made this bait famous. And another go-to bait for him was a black neon sweet beaver. Again, just flipping it in the buckbrush. The river was on the rise, so a lot of fish were coming up to try to spawn, and he found a little backwater deal, and he would just, you know, going through a variety of baits, different colors and different weight selections, and picking them off one by one. He also was throwing his signature Jean LaRue Buffalo 8.5-inch lizard, basically what it is. And you know, it's a different type of bait, and just making multiple presentations, and he's doing what he loves and what he does best. You know, he's made flipping and pitching famous throughout the country. So, you know, congratulations to him. He did a really fantastic job. Along the same lines, I was doing the same thing. You know, I was flipping a black and blue jig, but I like throwing a green pumpkin trailer, and this is a chigger craw here. This is a true tungsten 3/8 ounce black and blue jig, and I was up in this one creek flipping laydowns, basically trash, any kind of floating debris that was coming in the lake because it was on the rise. Another thing I was doing in between time, laydowns, and especially in the morning when the fish weren't up in the wood yet, they were kind of backed out, I was just throwing a 7-inch blue flake power worm. It's a great bait that time of year. The watercolor was kind of dingy, and I was picking them off with that. When the wind started blowing, I was throwing this PICASSO painted blade spinnerbait white chartreuse. You know, it seemed to be when the sun came up kind of high and the wind was blowing, I was throwing the spinnerbait covering water, I'd catch them doing that. My favorite thing I was doing though is towards the afternoon. Every afternoon, for some reason, the fish would get inches of water. I mean, they'd just be, you know, as shallow as you could possibly get. And a lot of times when I'm flipping, you'd spook them. You'd see them roll, or they'd bail on out of there. So what I was doing is throwing this Spro Frog, just black, and it's one of my favorite colors, making real long casts, as shallow as I can go. I mean, I was throwing it on the bank, dragging it in, fish would eat it. So that was really fun. I had a fun time fishing that tournament. It was, I mean, fishing all the ways I like to fish. And then we go to Smith Mountain Lake, which is totally opposite of Wheeler. It was gin clear. You know, the fish had tried to come up and spawn. We had a cold front come through, and I was basically targeting fish that were on beds, that were spawning. And that cold front kind of hurt. But during practice, I was covering water with a 5-inch swim bait, you know, throwing around docks, stumps, brush piles, getting a lot of good bites on that, as well as the Fred's Frog by Snag Proof. I was throwing that near docks, around the stumps, you know, especially when the sun came up, and you know, it was drawing some pretty good bites. As for my 2 bed fishing baits, when I did find one that was still locked on a bed, I went to the Cover Craw by JACKALL, just a watermelon green pumpkin color, as well as a white lizard by Powerbait. I mean, you got the Powerbait scent. A white lizard's always been one of my top bed fishing baits, and you know, it never lets me down. But the master, Kevin Van Dam, he was doing something completely different than anybody else. He was basically targeting smallmouth. He did catch a few largemouth, but he was running around north end of the lake, throwing an 1/8 ounce shaky head with a trick worm by Strike King, and you know, just making real long casts again. The water was gin clear, like I said, and he was pretty much sight fishing those smallmouth. I mean, he'd see them cruising down the flat and lead them, cast ahead of them, and they'd come over and eat. He's also throwing a Bitsy Bug by Strike King with a baby ragetail craw as a trailer. It's a small profile bait. The smallmouth couldn't stand it. They just ate it up. He also did catch a few fish on a Strike King Spitting Image topwater bait. And I mean, like I said, both events were exciting. There were fun places to fish, you know, but it's just amazing how different techniques throughout the whole lake. Like I didn't even think about trying a shaky head, you know, fishing for smallmouth at Smith Mountain Lake, but that's what makes guys better than other guys, or figure out, you know, certain things to win a tournament. Usually it's doing something different. So check back next week. We're going to talk about Guntersville and Kentucky Lake.